Welcome to New York Got Game.
All right, welcome back to New York Got Game. We are coming to you early this week because there's a lot going on in Knicks world. The Knicks, they start Summer League play this week, and Jalen Brunson, he signed an extension that rocked the NBA world. We are going to get into all of that on this episode. We don't have time to waste. Tim Kitzrow, what are the Knicks doing right now?
The Knicks are heating up.
Okay, so we've done a great deal of off-season talk, and now it's time to get back to some basketball. No, not actual NBA games, but Summer League action, as the Knicks will tip off competition at the NBA's Las Vegas Summer League on July 13th. So we have to do a Summer League preview here on New York Got Game. We also can't not do this. We got to talk about Jalen Brunson agreeing to an extension. We are going to do it with a man who helped me to preview the draft, so it only made sense to bring him back in studio for this one. Repping Knicks Film School to the fullest, my guy, Kris Pursiainen. Kris, what's going on, man?
Nothing much. Thanks so much for having me on. Excited to see these prospects we spent so much time talking about.
Yes.
Deliberating, all that good stuff. Now actually touch the court, see what they've got.
Yeah, we get to see him play, and it's fun. I know a lot of fans want to hear about these prospects before the Summer League games start, so we had to do that, and that's why we're doing this episode a little bit earlier this week. So, Kris, we know this as people watch basketball, and for those who know, the NBA Summer League, it's not real NBA games. But how important is Summer League for evaluating young talent, specifically on this Knicks roster?
Oh, it's definitely important, and I think specifically important for the Knicks in the sense that their rocks, their foundation is set offensively and defensively in regards to who has the paramount roles, what those roles are. It's all about finding complementary pieces, right? You saw Jared Dudley tell the reporters about the Mavericks Summer League team. There are guys that average 25 at Summer League who won't make an NBA team, and there are guys who average 5 or 6 who will. It's about the character, the glue, being complementary. And for the New York Knicks, we know Brunson and Randall are the planets that the rest of the team orbits around offensively. We know Anunoby and Robinson do the same on defense, and now Mikal Bridges as well. So how can you fit into those roles? Can you hit catch and shoot three-pointers? You know, they're not looking for someone to hit a tween hezzy step back split-cack three-pointer, right? Like, they want catch and shoot. They want floaters and runners. Can you be effective off the catch? NBA teams are closing out now because everyone can shoot. What can you do from there? Dante DiVincenzo had so much success last season because of his shooting at driving to the rim. And he improved his finishing, a career best year around the rim because of his adaptation to the defensive attention he was getting. So Tyler Kolek, Rokas Jokubaitis, like, what do you guys got? you know?
Yeah, that's it. I think a lot of times to what you're saying is fans, NBA fans, or even if it's not just Knicks fans, they're looking, oh, does he have a bag? That's sometimes not what is needed in terms of the team building. You need players that are going to come in, play a role, understand their role. Look, they might develop into that. They may have a crazy bag, and that's nice. But like you said, can you do the simple things? Can you help the team win possessions? We'll see if some of these young players can do that here at Summer League. Okay, Kris, let's go through who the Knicks drafted this year, because you and I talked a lot about who they could draft the last time you were sitting here. And I want to talk about what you're looking to see from them at Summer League. So let's start with the first-round pick, a guy that you and I both liked, Pacome Dadier. Last time you were here, we spoke about how we thought he could be a good fit for the Knicks. Some viewed him as a project. Even after he was drafted, some people thought he was going to be a Euro stash pick. What are you looking for him to show when we look at his game at Summer League in Vegas?
Yeah, for me, I think it starts on the defensive end of the floor. And the reason for that is not because Dadier projects to be some complete sieve on that end, but more so fitting into NBA team structure, NBA defensive context. How can you execute on your role? Can you close out? Can you make the right rotation? Are you getting burnt off the dribble? Are guys getting by you? Can you stay in front of your man? Right? These simple questions that just like build defensive foundation. Dadier has to answer to give the Knicks some sort of idea of how close he is to contributing on the NBA court and what specifically needs to be worked on in that regard. So defensively, just the fundamentals. What can he show? How good is he now? Will his size be a huge factor, or will it not matter because the defensive awareness isn't there yet? Remember, this was the youngest player in the 2024 NBA draft, and the Knicks, a Tom Thibodeau-led team, selected him. So I guess opposites attract, right? Thibodeau always known to love 22, 23-year-old rookies if he plays them. Now they take an 18-year-old. I don't project that we'll see him, but to get a sense of what he needs to do defensively is where it starts. Offensively, to talk about the other side of the court, I mean, he showed catch and shoot potential, right, with Radio Farm Ulm in Germany. It's just about NBA defense. There's more space out there. How will you take advantage of it? Will you use your size and cut into open space? Will you stand around with your hands up just waiting to get past you? Will he be moving off the ball? That, I would say confidently, he's great at moving off the ball. Even just at 18, he's very aware of what he can do without the ball in his hands to help his team on the offensive end of the floor. Let's see that translate, right? At this age, it's really just about showing it. A lot of young players go and play professionally against bulky 30-year-old dudes in Europe, and they hit a wall at some point. They hit that rookie wall or that sophomore slump where, okay, the book is out on you. We know what you are. We can beat you. We can scheme you out of the game. Dadier wasn't some superstar out there, but he never hit that wall. And so the adaptability from him has been proven. It's just about now showing it again and again until he's ready to contribute on an NBA floor at the highest level.
And the beauty of it, the Knicks taking him, right? Youngest player in the draft taken. The beauty is they have time to actually develop him. And what good organizations do is take the time to develop those players. We've seen the Knicks do this before. Look at Miles McBride. We've watched his development over the last couple of years. So maybe Dadier, as a young player, can focus on the defense and see how he fits into offense and how to play the right way. So we will see. He is a player I'm definitely watching. I want to see what his game is like in Vegas and how he acclimates himself with the Summer League team. Next up, let's talk about another guy. You and I talked about the last time we were here. I don't think either of us thought the Knicks would get Dadier and Tyler Kolek, who we're going to talk about next. They end up with both of them. They get Kolek in the second round. He received a contract which set a record for the most guaranteed money for a second-round selection ever. It seems, with the Knicks giving him that contract, they're very high on his abilities. Can Kolek be the third point guard on this roster? And do you believe, with a strong showing this summer and in training camp, that he can get consistent rotation minutes next season?
So, like we spoke about last time, him being the backup point guard on the roster means they have to be okay with him starting. So I think it's great you started with third point guard, because we know just as a result of being a rookie, he won't be the full-time backup one from day one of the season. But third point guard, very achievable goal for him, and I do think he can do that today. The reason is because of his ability to see the floor, first and foremost. Second of all, his catch and shoot three-point ability, and I guess the 2B there to the 2A would be the runner and floater. So, you can nerd out and go on Synergy or the eye test, whichever way you want to go. I try to combine both and stay objective, but let my biases show a little bit. And for me with Kolek, all I could see was Knicks. Like, they love guys with that shot profile. They love guys who hover around 40% from three, despite not always taking the easiest looks. And that's kind of where it goes in terms of improvement. So, what I'm looking for in the Summer League from him is hitting shots from behind screens of NBA-sized dudes and not NCAA. Hitting shots, stepping into three-pointers, right? Can you bring the ball up the court and just make them pay right away? Will he even get that opportunity? Maybe not. Maybe the scout on him is to pressure him right away. But if you do that, he's going to drop a dime to someone. And so that's the thing with Kolek, is he has to show that he can be a pick-your-poison type of point guard. Either you pressure him and pay the cost because someone cutting backdoor just got a Eli Manning Super Bowl-esque dime dropped into their hands, or you give him space and he pulls that thing right in your face. So for Kolek, I think starting as the third string point guard is super reasonable, and I don't put it past him to eventually be in a situation where he's getting his name called, especially in case of injury. I think Thibodeau would trust him earlier than most other rookies, but there are some things that, to make up for his 6'2" height, 6'3" wingspan frame, that he's got to show offensively. Defensively, just about awareness. We know he knows the game, right? If you know the game offensively, you know the game defensively.
Right.
Because to be good at offense, you have to read defenses.
Right.
So we know he knows how to be a chess piece out there, but this isn't a guy who is going to, break your offensive game plan with his length or anything. It's just about wanting it. The effort, going after it, being hard-nosed, tough, nasty, physical basketball. That's all Tyler Kolek. And I should note, This is the second time the Knicks front office, to your original point, that we didn't think they could get both Dadier and Kolek. 2021, there was a guard that I had early 20s on my big board. I said, the Knicks need to take this guy in the first round. He screams Tom Thibodeau. He screams New York Knicks basketball. And they pass on him for Quentin Grimes. And I'm like, oh, well, Grimes fits Thibodeau too. And then with the 36th pick, your New York Knicks select Miles McBride. And it's like, oh, there's my guy. Second time now. I had Kolek, early 20s on my big board.
Yep, you did.
Wanted the Knicks to take him in the first round. They don't. I was shocked because they took not only not Kolek, who I knew they were high on, but an 18-year-old. And then day 2 of the draft starts, and boom, Tyler Kolek's a New York Knick. It should be no surprise that he's got the most guaranteed money of a second-round pick ever because they viewed him as a first-round caliber player, especially given the fact that Pacome Dadier, as Fred Katz reported for The Athletic, signed 80% of his rookie scale deal. So the money worked out with those two, and they did get both.
Yeah, they did. It's a tremendous get for the Knicks, and Kolek, I think, is one of the intriguing pieces as well, too, here at Vegas because he seems to fit into what they're doing right away. Yeah, I think third point guard on the team, very attainable goal, as you said, for him. We'll see how that plays out for him in Vegas. I want to see how he shoots the ball, as well as I think the playmaking is always there with the passing. That'll be fine. Let's see how he shoots the ball against some more athletic players that'll see here in Summer League. Now, also in the second round, the Knicks selected Kevin McCullough Jr., 56th overall. Former St. John's head coach Norm Roberts, he told my colleague Stephen Bondi that McCullough Jr.'s game reminded him of Josh Hart. I found that pretty interesting. That makes him an intriguing prospect. Now, McCullough's not going to play in Vegas, folks. He's staying in New York to rehab the knee injury that he suffered in college. So, Kris, what can you tell us about his game? And when healthy and with some development, what do you think he could eventually bring to the NBA rotation, particularly the Knicks?
Not to shock anyone here, but defense, right? We know
what a shock.
These New York Knicks love defense. Tom Thibodeau loves defense. That's Kevin McCullough Jr. He is going to have red shoulders and arms by the end of the game because of all the times he dived on the floor. He's going to have that floor burn all over his body because he is a hawk. He just gets after it. And for me, with McCullough Jr., it comes down to the shot, and it comes down to how functional is his offense going to be. Because I can tell you right now, today, he is offensively versatile. The thing is, it's like playing Rush Hour, right? You got to move all the cars around to get the one car out. All those other cars, for me, are like his shooting ability. If he can shoot, he can move those cars and unlock his versatility and get that car off on that highway. But there's a stop there because if he can't shoot, no one is going to respect his shooting, so they're not going to close out hard. So they're going to be ready for his driving. They're going to pack the paint. They're going to be able to scheme him out of a game.
So basically, if he can't shoot the ball at this level, he's not going to be a rotation player. That's what I'm hearing you say.
He'll be a primarily defensive-minded player who goes out there to be, he'll help the wing stop efforts of Bridges and Anunoby, help supplant that, right? But offensively, he's not someone who opposing defenses are going to be game planning for in any way. He's just out there. Now, if he can shoot, and I'm not saying 40% on high volume, just
league average?
Josh Hart,
right.
Just being respectable, just taking 1 or 2 threes a game when you're open, that will open things up for him, allow him to show some of that versatility. Again, older player, the Knicks love targeting multi-year college players. McCullough Jr. is someone who not only Norm Roberts, but Jonathan Wasserman too, so a coach and a scout comped him to Josh Hart. That's for a reason. He's tough, hard-nosed, physical, loves effort. Like, he loves giving 101%, and that all came across in the intel in the NBA draft. The whole thing is the defense. He can stop guards, he can stop wings, you can put him onto smaller bigs. It all sounds amazing, but the shot is going to determine whether or not he can get on the court. It's almost like a diet soda version of Ryan Dunn, who we talked about the Knicks potentially being interested in. I think the Mikal Bridges trade changed things a little bit there in terms of how much capital they were willing to put towards a wing who could play from day one. But same thing with Dunn. If he can't shoot, he's just kind of out there offensively, but he's immense defensively. McCullough Jr. not as incredible defensively. Dunn was probably the best defensive prospect in the 24 NBA draft, but it's the same style of how functional are your skills?
Right. How functional, we'll see. If you can't shoot, it's hard to play, hard to stay on the floor in this league right now. But if he's got that kind of effort, as the kids would say, that dog in him, right, on the defensive end, which we know Tom Thibodeau likes, and then he gets the shot developed, could be a player for the Knicks down the road. Now, the last of the 2024 picks is center. There's a lot of talk about center with the Knicks, and we'll get to that later. Ariel Hukporti appears to be a center that seems in that mold, that type that the Knicks like, Kris. What part of Hukporti's game do you see shining through here in Vegas?
So it's interesting with Hukporti because if I had to compare him only to New York Knicks centers since Leon Rose was hired, it would probably be Isaiah Hartenstein. Not because I think he, is some offensively versatile stud, but just the way the Knicks used Hartenstein. Like, I'm sure in Oklahoma City he'll show more of his offensive game, but what the Knicks had him show in the Big Apple was not posting up, not, sitting in the post for 8 seconds, dribbling and then throwing up a sky hook, right? Like, his game was quick decisions, smart passes, great rim protection, great rebounding. That's Hukporti's game. He is a center, New York Knicks style through and through. Like you said, rim protection, no offensive frills, no, push shot, hook shot, jump shot, not there. Do not expect him to score outside of 8 feet this, this decade maybe. Like, I just don't look for that because you're setting him up to fail. But what he can do at a high level is that Norvel Pell, that Nerlens Noel style of Knicks center who's just out there to play the fundamentals of the position because that is what the Knicks value at the center position. Now, where Hartenstein comes into play, the reason I bring up Hartenstein is because out of the short roll, Hukporti has shown, I think, more than just flashes of being able to be a smart, keen, sharp passer. He finds guys in the corners open for three. You run a pick and roll, you pass him the ball. If there's a defender in front of him, they crowd the paint, he's probably going to be able to make the right read. He's tall, so he can see over the top of the defense, right? It's like a tall quarterback, whether they have amazing field vision or not, they're taller than everyone else. And so for Hukporti, he's shown the ability to make those passes, and that to me is the most integral part because when the Hartenstein was on the court and the Knicks were really rolling was when the ball was moving freely around all 5 sets of hands.
Yeah, and Hartenstein, what made him so valuable to the Knicks offense, it's a lot of things, but the passing was so valuable. And to get another center who could do that and maybe fit in, it'll be good. We'll see. Hukporti, another player to watch there in Vegas. Now, Knicks fans, I know this. You're also excited about a name that you've been waiting to see. It's former second-round pick of the Knicks in 2021. You talked about the 2021 draft earlier. That's Lithuanian point guard Rokas Jokubaitis. This is going to be his second summer league, Kris, playing with the Knickerbockers. So what does Jokubaitis what can he bring to the table? And this is the thing you're going to be watching. Okay, you saw him in the 2021 Vegas Summer League. What improvements to his game are you hoping to see in this summer league?
Yeah, Jokubaitis was like aggressively neutral in the 21 Summer League. Like, you didn't notice him a lot because he was making flashy, crazy, no-look pass plays, whatever. But you also didn't see him as like, oh, they're scoring on this guy every time down the floor. I think this time around, he's older. He's got way more experience playing overseas. You're looking to see a consistent positive impact. And not to be Captain Obvious, but that's something that I think he can bring to the table is just consistent positive impact. How's he going to do it? His bag. And it's funny because a lot of people, look at him and they think, oh, this is not someone I'm counting on to create offense. But in the Summer League, that's his game, is the European style offense. We're going to keep the ball moving. It's going to be free flowing around the court. And when he has an opportunity, Tom Thibodeau loves to say it, you let the defense dictate what you're going to do. So his floater, his runner, a lot of the things we talked about with Tyler Kolek, they are very strong, especially when he's the ball handler in pick and roll situations. And that's something that he excels at. Europe, it's not a pick and roll league out there, right? Like, the NBA is the pick and roll league. And LeBron James in the early 2010s popularized having a non-point guard run your pick and roll. So you see all sorts of positions. Now you've got Wemby and Gobert for Team France.
Right, you'll see 4 or 5
pick and rolls, right? So with Jokubaitis, it's more of that traditional one running the pick and roll. But that's the thing, is he gives you counters. He gives you options. He can make the read inside. He's great at bounce passes, entry passes into the post. The other side of it is that he can make the defense pay for sagging off. The floater, the runner, very similar to Tyler Kolek. I think Kolek is probably the better shooter from distance, but Jokubaitis, has experience playing in a professional league, running pick and rolls and running an offense. So we'll see. It's going to be interesting to compare and contrast these two.
Let me ask you this, too. If Jokubaitis plays well in this summer league, what does that mean for him? Because you would think that him playing well here would have him in a position where he could be vying for the third point guard spot along with Tyler Kolek, but Tyler Kolek, there's been an investment in him in terms of the guaranteed money. What does playing well mean for Rokas Jokubaitis here at the summer league?
I do think it's possible that Jokubaitis could impress to an extent where the Knicks say, wow, okay, this is a guy who can play alongside Deuce McBride. He could be someone we mix in with the guards off the bench. Injuries happen. They're part of the game. You've got to be ready, right? The Knicks, like we said on the last show, Dex, they learned that very well.
Yes, they did.
In these last playoffs,
yes,
right? So
right.
For New York, I think it comes down to Kolek is here. He's very much a known quantity. And I think Jokubaitis might have the better chance at contributing this second. But I'm not sure that he'll come over. So we'll see, right? He's negotiating with another team overseas now. His contract at Barca is over. And they have Juan Nunez, who the Spurs drafted, and they've been playing 35-year-old Ricky Rubio.
Yeah,
shout out to Ricky. But, like we said earlier, Jokubaitis is good. He's skilled, but it's not necessarily tailored to the European game. That's why I actually think he would do better in the NBA than overseas because there's more space on the floor. There's many more pick and rolls being run. That said, I'm not sure he's coming over. So we kind of need to see those contract details get ironed out first. If he does come over, I would be surprised if there's not a point in the season where he's playing again, just because injuries are part of the game. And if they're bringing him over, it's because they think he can step right in and fit in. But having Kolek around, no matter what, you've got him signed for what, 4 years?
4 years.
At this rate. So I don't think there's any, organizational impetus or rush to get him on the floor immediately. I would be surprised if either of these two guards, lefty point guards, funnily enough,
both
played game 1 or 2 or 3 to start the year.
All right, it'll be interesting with both of those guys. We will see. Okay, so we talked about who the Knicks drafted. We talked about a player they drafted a couple years ago back in 2021. But there's undrafted players, lesser-known prospects on this Knicks Summer League roster. Who are some of those that we should keep an eye on?
I'll start out with Justin Lewis, big draft Twitter name in the 2022 draft, and he came out of Marquette University, which, you can guess he was a teammate of Tyler Kolek's for a year at Marquette, and he is someone who wowed, draft evaluators with his functional fluidity, length, athleticism. He has yet to really put it all together. That's why he spent most of his time in the G. He was with the Windy City Bulls after signing a 2-way contract with Chicago after going undrafted. But the Salt Lake City Stars of the G League traded 2 players and a G League second-round pick for him. So he spent last season with them. That's a pretty big investment for a G League team to, send
2 players. Yeah, that's a lot.
2 players and an asset, 3 assets for one guy. So they saw something in him. He's improving his three-point shot, but where you're going to see him contribute the most is off the ball, right? Filling those gaps, cutting to the rim, offensive rebounding, maybe, if he's got, that size functionally in Summer League. But he's a long-rangey defensive wing who is showing the signs of growth on offense that you'd like to see, working on the three-point shot, like I said, particularly the corners is where he would be most effective. For Lewis, it's mostly going to be in the Summer League for him about not shot creation. Remember, we were talking earlier, the Knicks are looking for complementary guys at this point. It's about showing, hey, I can be an asset to you when the ball's not in my hands. And his game is tailored for that. So that's why I want to shout him out. The other one is going to be Sankolo Sele. And this is just an awesome story. He's one of 2 South Africans playing in the G League this season. He played in the BAL, the Basketball Africa League, was the first South African to ever make the All-BAL first team this past season. Defensive first team this year, the year before. He's got the resume of playing overseas and having success, right? All you can do is knock down the obstacles in front of you. So he's making the most of every opportunity he's had. He played college, was not an incredible shooter. That's not what you're going to be looking for out of him. but he is like a bulldog of a guard, right? He is going to pressure the rim. He's going to be physical. He is going to push the pace. And for the Knicks, like, that's an asset for them with their style of play, especially given the rumors swirling around that, you know, watching the playoffs year after year, they think they've got a great team, but they'd like to play a little faster. Well, I don't think Sele, again, he's not going to be playing in the rotation this season unless, you know, something terrible happens to the guys, and the third stringers even plan to be in the rotation.
Right.
But we've seen how injuries can stack up really quick, and all of a sudden your bench players become starters, your third stringers become bench players, and then you need a new set of reserves. So Sam Sele is someone who, out of the Basketball Africa League, I could see being relevant just because of his hard work and dedication that's kept him involved and kept him getting new opportunities that he can make the most of. The Knicks love these guys that don't give up. They have targeted plenty of like former lottery picks who ended up being journeymen, Nerlens Noel, Alec Burks, right? These guys who just kept at it during their career and never gave up. It's tended to be a trend with this Knicks front office.
Yeah, so maybe they get another hit there. All right, some good stuff and some players that folks may not know about to keep an eye on with the Summer League. Now, out of all the players that we've discussed on the Knicks Summer League roster, who do you think has the best shot, the realistic shot, of making the Knicks regular season roster, and not just that, and also getting rotation minutes? Who is that player or players for you?
So for the regular season roster, I would say it seems like Pacome Dadier is planning on coming over, and you know, he's not a second round pick, so he has the discretion on that, not the team. That said, I don't see him getting rotation minutes because of what we talked about earlier, him being, you know, 4 years younger than myself. But Tyler Kolek, that's someone who I definitely see making the roster and could definitely see getting regular season rotation minutes, not consistently, but you know, sometimes the Knicks just go with a 7 or 8 man rotation. I don't think they're going to be doing that anymore, especially given how many injuries they faced last season. I'm not saying, you know, lots of studies have been done that show that load management doesn't necessarily prevent injuries or doesn't reduce wear and tear enough to do that. But I do think, just for the sake of posterity, the Knicks won't shrink to a 6 or 7 man rotation for the regular season for a Tuesday night game against the Charlotte Hornets like they have in the past. So I do think that that would be an opportunity for them to give Kolek a shot. And they'll be telling him, hey, listen, stay in your lane, play your game. This is not your time to come out and be flashy and impress us, but that's who Kolek is too, right? He's the kind of player who will impress you with the margins, with the gritty stuff.
Just don't want him to do too much, right?
And he won't. Right. He knows what he's out there for. He knows why they drafted him, and he's aware of what his skills are, what his shortcomings are. You don't see him going head first into 7-foot bigs, being like, nah, you know what? Like, I was in the weight room yesterday. I'm going to just go up with it. I got this. That's why he developed that floater, that runner shot, because he knows with that left hand that if he has that golden touch, he can get shots up and over those bigs. So he already does kind of play within himself. That's what they'll be looking for from him.
Yes, he's a guy I could absolutely see getting rotation minutes. I think you brought up something that's really interesting that I'm sure on this show, your shows, you'll talk more about with the Knicks, and that's, I do think Tom Thibodeau has to go a little deeper in the rotation this year. Like you said, Tuesday night game against Charlotte. Yeah, maybe play 9, 10 guys, get some of these guys some experience. You can't develop any of these guys if they don't get minutes. Even if it's 5, 7 minutes a game, folks, that matters a bit. So Kolek, even if he gets that amount of PT, I think it's pretty good. Kolek, guy to watch. We've talked about him a lot on this show. Okay, we're going to move on from Summer League because some other pretty big news this week with the New York Knicks. We're going to talk about a couple of off-season notes. There was a lot of talk, Kris, about Jalen Brunson's future. July 12th, first day the Knicks could offer the point guard a contract extension. What do you know? When the contract extension could be offered on July 12th, Brunson signs it. 4 years, $156.5 million. Could have waited till next summer and signed a contract for $269 million. This was massive news, right? It was talked about. You thought it could happen. But the reason it's massive news is you and I know, we were talking about this before, huge implications for the Knicks in terms of team building going forward. What was your reaction to Brunson signing this contract? And how much do you think this helps the Knicks as they move forward?
Well, my reaction was, you know, like, of course he signed that. That's how he's been. the Knicks brought him in. He didn't want the press conference. He didn't want the pomp and circumstance. He just wanted to get in and play basketball. What was the first thing he told the media? I'm not your savior. I'm not coming here to be the savior of the New York Knicks. Now, funnily enough, I think you and I would agree that he has been.
Yeah. You got Josh Hart out here tweeting and saying that they want to build him a statue. Knicks fans saying they want to build him a statue. They are looking at him as the savior right now. Sorry to cut you off, but yes, the people are looking at him in that way, to your point. Yeah.
No, you added something important, which is that he's got the support of his teammates. And, there are jokes out there running around like, oh, I don't love my friends enough to give up $113 million to be able to play with them. But it's not that simple, right? You do the math, you actually look at it. He's really giving up $37 million, right? That last year is a player option. He's not going to opt into it. He's going to sign a bigger deal at that point. I don't get the notion that the Knicks are trying to like pull one over on him and that he's doing like the players union a disservice. Like I'm pretty sure the guy who's the godson of the Knicks team president, whose agent is the literal son of the Knicks team president, is not getting one pulled over on him by the team, right? They always do right by him. That's why he came in the first place.
Right.
He didn't have to sign in New York. He did. He wanted the challenge of leading his own team, and he wanted the challenge of bringing the New York Knicks back to relevance. Well, second round playoff appearance or two later, we're looking at a New York Knicks team that is quite relevant, that is atop the power rankings in the league when it comes to, top 3, top 5 teams going into the season. And that's what's so big for the Knicks about this extension. To connect the points is that they're good right now, and this offers them just a little bit more financial flexibility to be better going forward. Saves them about $11, $12, $13 million per season. I think it's 12.3 on average that it saves them per season. That's a big deal because you're seeing role players go for $8 million a season now, right? Take a look at what Derrick Jones Jr. and Najee Marshall, two wings who I really enjoy watching play because I'm a sucker for defensive fundamentals and role players and the boring stuff, right? Well, Jones Jr.'s dunks aren't so boring, but
they are not.
That could be the difference for the Knicks getting a final rotation piece in a year or two from now. That could be the difference in, being only able to offer someone that mid-level exception or the taxpayer mid-level exception of $5.1 million and saying, hey, we have $11 million, take 8 of them, and we need the other 3 to sign our rookie. That is where these little things come into play, and Brunson was aware of that. You saw the reporting. He was looking at Patrick Mahomes and Tom Brady, these different players that have taken just small, not massive, right? He's not playing for $1 a game or something, but Rick Brunson won't be getting some record-setting assistant coaching contract to make up for it,
right.
But he's looking at these stars who have won over time and saying, what did they do that I can do? One of the sacrifices, even you look at a Dirk Nowitzki, right? Like, it was taking less money, still making a lot of money. I think $156 million, like, oh no, poor him, right?
Yeah,
but that is still a lot, but also it doesn't put the Knicks in a situation where they're now consistently operating with their back against the wall. There's a foot or two of breathing room for them to look behind them and say, okay, we have enough to take a step or two.
Which in this NBA, with all the new rules with the second apron, first apron, you talked about the flexibility is so important, and I think that's why what Brunson did in signing this extension as opposed to signing it next year. You can talk about all the money, the $113 million, but it's important to give them that flexibility going forward. And when they're able to add to the team, if there are areas of needs moving forward, they're going to have the ability to do that, and it allows the Knicks to contend in this window. We think they are just a little bit more. I think it's good for the Knicks. Fans should be excited about that. Here's the thing fans are talking about, too. You know this, Kris. Since the departure of Isaiah Hartenstein, the Knicks have yet to sign another center. In your eyes, is it crucial for New York to sign a reliable backup center before the start of the season, or do you think they're going to start next season with Mitchell Robinson and Jericho Sims?
It's tough to say, but if you look at historical precedent and Tom Thibodeau teams, right, he wants to have rim protection on the floor at all times. And Jericho Sims is someone who the Knicks love having around. He works hard, keeps his head down, never makes a fuss, just shows up to practice.
Here comes the butt.
Puts in the work.
I saw this coming. There was a butt coming. I saw it coming. Here we go. Let's go.
But you take a look at the market right now. free agents are flying off the board. Many of them, I don't think, are viewed as better players than Precious Achiuwa, but who remains unsigned is Precious Achiuwa. And so I do think the Knicks have something in the works where they either bring him back and have told him, hey, if you wait to sign, we promise you this amount of money. Maybe they use their taxpayer mid-level exception on him and give him a $5.1 million contract. Maybe they're looking at what kind of trade they could swing. We know the rumors came out about Walker Kessler. SNYZ and Begley was all over those, and talking about Danny Ainge's asking price for Walker Kessler, I think, ended those discussions there. Who could be gettable, though, for a much more, not even, I don't want to say affordable, just like even just reasonable price? Nick Richards from the Charlotte Hornets, right? So the connection, Worldwide Wesley, Kentucky, it's all there. But what Richards can do from day one is be a great role man for the New York Knicks. You take a look at the advanced analytics, the numbers, the spreadsheets, and he's usually atop the league in the top 10 somewhere in regards to efficiency as a role man in pick and roll, finishing at the rim, and all that good stuff. So he's not someone who perfectly fits the Thibodeau mold of center, but I've heard, and I'm sure plenty of other people who know more than me have heard, that Tom Thibodeau would like another center in the mix to go into the season with, whether that's Achiuwa or Richards, or they swing some trade for some unexpected candidate. But I think it comes down to Richards for me because of the fact that he would be cost controlled going forward and they could extend him. It also doesn't hamstring you in regards to still acquiring Walker Kessler. So like the Knicks could pick up Nick Richards now, get to the deadline. The Jazz have 14 wins and they've dealt Lauri Markkanen to the Warriors and they're in a situation where they're tearing it down. And the Knicks say, all right, you guys showed your hand. You traded Markkanen. You're going to want to trade Kessler too, right? It's third-year center playing summer league ball in Salt Lake City. Your coach has come out and said he doesn't view him as a starter yet. Like, let's be real with ourselves. How about one protected first-round pick instead of the 2 picks you wanted? That's where you could see Utah finally, show some flexibility. Not that teams across the league have to just like give in to the demands of the New York Knicks. That's not how life works. Just because you want something doesn't mean you should get it.
Right.
But usually in business, you know this well, like compromises have to be made on both ends for an agreement to be reached that will actually happen. And I do think for the Knicks, it would be giving up more draft capital than they'd like for someone who still has development to go. For the Jazz, it would be not getting the amount of first-round picks they wanted. Either way, I think they're fine if they get Richards and then don't make a deal for Kessler. Because if they can bring back Achiuwa and trade for Richards, then they have the 3 centers that we've talked about them needing. If one gets hurt, they still have 2 guys they're comfortable playing.
Right, and that's I think what they want to get to. 2 guys that they're comfortable playing, especially with the concerns about health around Mitchell Robinson. We'll see how all that plays out with the center market for the Knicks. All right, Kris has been great with his time. Got one last thing for you, Kris, here. Knicks offseason, and this is also now including the Brunson extension because you got to put it into that. How do you evaluate the Knicks offseason moves thus far? And what are your overall predictions? You're the first person I'm asking a prediction early right now for the Knicks this upcoming season, considering their current roster and the offseason moves we've seen. What are your predictions for the Knicks for the 2024-2025 season?
Off-season reactions, we'll start there.
Yeah.
I mean, if you view the Mikal Bridges trade as the final move for the New York Knicks, I would understand giving them a B-, a B, saying, okay, you made your team better. You didn't give up rotational players to do it, but you lost Hartenstein, trying to make up for it now. Some people view them as scrambling to find a center. I personally don't believe that Bridges is their final all-in move. I think they still have contracts on the roster that, to me, signal a potential to be moved going forward. We'll see what happens with Julius Randle and a potential extension there. If they can extend Randle, that, to me, confirms that that was not their final move. Because if they extend Randle, especially at maybe a 4-170 number, it gets to a point where, okay, they can take him and other contracts and move them for another big-time player going forward. Who that is remains to be seen. Of course, I know Knick fans hate dealing with the ifs and maybes, but
they want names.
You have way fewer question marks than usual with this roster. You know what you're getting out of a lot of these guys. And that's the thing, is the Knicks are really good right now. I say it a lot, especially on this show. Like, there's a new lens through which you need to evaluate this team. So for me, thinking that it's not their final move to pick up Mikal Bridges, it's not their all-in move, I'm going to go A- on the Knicks offseason, draft included, extension included. You know, the A-, not A or plus, comes from the amount of draft capital they gave up for Mikal Bridges. But A-, you know, if I brought that home, my parents would be happy. So I think
It's not like you brought home an F.
no,
You don't want that.
or yep. So you know, C's get degrees, but we're not in that territory either. It was an excellent offseason for the New York Knicks, and off the back of that, I think they will have a very successful 2025 campaign. They won 50 games. They missed Randall for a third of the season, Robinson for half the season, Anunoby for half the time they had him, which was about a quarter of the season. You know, law of averages says they're just not, you need to find wood for me to knock on, but like not going to deal with those amount of injury troubles this year. I would say 57, 58 regular season wins.
Okay.
Maybe another second seed for them, if not the first seed, right? This is the kind of team that even if everyone knows they're not the best team in the conference compared to Boston, or maybe Philadelphia really puts things together, it's a Tom Thibodeau team. They're likely to come out with one of the better regular season records, treating every night like Game 7. And that's an aspect of this team that showed even last season up until Game 82 against the Chicago Bulls, when they did not rest anybody. They said, we don't care who we end up playing. We're never going to lose on purpose. Right. That's what got us here. That's what's going to keep us going.
All right. Optimistic. 57, 58 wins. I like that range of an A- for the Knicks offseason. That is Kris Pursiainen. Check him out. Knicks Film School just previewed Summer League, talked about the Knicks offseason, Jalen Brunson's contract extension. Kris, I appreciate you coming up. It's your second time in a couple of weeks. Had you here. I had to have you back for this. Thought you were the perfect person. Appreciate you, man.
Pleasure is mine, Dex. Thanks so much for having me on, and we'll see how these young players do in the Summer League. I'm excited. We'll see how it goes.
We'll see how it goes. It'll be an interesting one watching the Summer League. I will be out there next week to watch some of them play in action, so it should be pretty fun. We'll talk after that. You'll be back on again soon, so we'll have you back on again soon. Thanks again. Check out Kris's work.
The Knicks are on fire!
Well, crazy week for the New York Knicks, and then next week, I'll be out in Vegas to cover the Knicks in Summer League. Should be a fun one out there. Great time breaking down the Knicks, talking about their offseason, and there's still so much to go before we get to the next NBA season. Special thanks to my guest, Kris Pursiainen of Knicks Film School. Also, thank you to the people that make this great show possible. My producer, Lee Ensler, my editor, Antonio Oliveros Nicole, and wonderful director, Brianna Butsindashiaka. I'm Dexter Henry. We'll catch you next time on New York Got Game.
And thanks for watching New York Got Game. Boom shakalaka!